Alright, so here's going to be some instructions on turning Michael Jackson into an avatarish creature. I'm not going to do everything that you would do on this. For example, I would probably use the clone stamp to clone hair over this ear, and then bring in the ear of some animal that might have the avatarish looking ear, like a donkey or something like that. But for the purposes of this, I'm just going to try to hit on the basics. So here we go. You're going to open the Michael Jackson from the class website, the original one that we've used, and we're first going to add a hue saturation adjustment layer. So I'm going to select the face and the neck, and probably would serve you well to get up into the hair, just a little bit into the hairline. Now, when you get ready to do one of these of yourself, if you're blonde, your hairline's probably going to give you some problems, so just be aware. You do want to try to get the red out of here. So when you refine the edge, do take a look at it. Make sure that it blends well. You might even feather the edges just a little bit on this so that the colors blend. So I'm going to shift my edge out a little bit. Ooh, I don't want to get that red in there though. And then feather that. We'll see if that works. Alright, so I'm going to say OK on this. And then I'm going to add the hue saturation adjustment layer. So it's layer, new adjustment layer, hue saturation, and I want to check it. I'm going to just call this blue so I don't get these confused. This is going to be my blue layer. Alright, so we did it. Now I'm going to move this around till we get to kind of the avatar blue color, which this direction works well for me. You might decide if you think it's a little too blue, you can adjust this saturation a little bit, however you like. Okay, next thing here is we are going to remove the saturation on the eye holes in the mouth so that we don't have those areas with the blue in them. So I'm going to click on the mask on the blue layer, and I'm going to use my paintbrush and paint in black to get the eyes kind of back to normal. And you know, make a small brush to get into the little cracks and crevices a little bit there and touch it up nicely. Okay, so that takes care of there. And then the lips, it is sometimes kind of hard to tell. I mean, sometimes I just go ahead and get some extra, use a bigger one, and just go ahead and get a little extra down here if you have to, because it's kind of easier to just get rid of the edges. So I'm going to kind of go around it, and then I'll just paint back out the weird parts there. That's just kind of easier, I think, than trying to figure out where the edges are. Alright, so that takes care of the first step, which is to change the skin color. Now if you saw any other areas that were a problem, you could fix them. This one isn't too bad because we did the feathered edge here, and so it kind of blends nicely on the edges. We don't have too much of a thing. If you see problems in the hairline, you know, again, you can paint in white up in these areas to kind of fix that a little bit. Or you can use my trick of the huge brush and just let the edges catch it a little bit if you need to. Okay, now that's getting onto the shirt too much down there, so I need to back off here. Alright, so that's just basically that part. Alright, so get that part finished. And then the next part that we're going to do is to change the color of the shirt. So again, you're going to quick select, but you have to come back to the background layer. You're going to quick select the shirt. We don't want to quick select his bling bling. You can go ahead and leave that, or you can get rid of it. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to paint it back out, so I'm not going to worry about it. Then we're going to go to Image, Adjustments, Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Hue Saturation. We want it check marked, and we say OK. And then we're going to go through and change this to a purple color. Find my purple. There we go. And that's like a little too much. I'm going to pull the saturation back a little bit so it's not overwhelming. And then, of course, we've got to go in and touch up some of these areas. So like this makes it a really bright silver, but it's not supposed to be that bright. So I'm going to click on this layer and use my black to paint out that so it's actually more the off color that it's supposed to be. And there too. And then these areas that have the red that shouldn't, I'm going to take my white one and fix those areas. Again, using a soft brush so everything blends nicely and doesn't have ugly edges on it. Okay, and again, you could have like pre-selected this, like minus those out, but I just personally think it's a lot easier to just paint it out afterward. So it's up to you how you do that. Okay. All right, I think that's going to be good enough. I'm going to zoom out and see if there's any other areas. And there's one up there that needs to be touched up. It's red. It needs to be purple. And actually, I'm going to call this purple so I know what this layer does. And then I'm going to paint that in white to make this area purple. So I'm going to click back on the mask and then paint that area in. And if you see any other areas, you would fix them at this point as well. All right. So there we go. We've got our blue face, we've got those areas taken out of the mask, and we've fixed the shirt. Now we're going to do some kind of funky thing here, and we are going to use the Liquify tool to make his eyes a little bigger and have his nose kind of have a bigger gap. Now we haven't used this tool before, so I would suggest before you get ready to do it that you save this, just because your computer might freak out on you, and I'd hate for you to lose your work. Sadly, this is a destructive tool. The only way to use this is destructively. So we're going to click back on the background layer. We're going to go to Filter and Liquify. This is a really fun tool. I call it the plastic surgery tool because that's basically what it's like. But anyway, so when we come in here, we've got different options. There's some weird options like warping, which if you have a really big brush is kind of hilarious, like woo, but don't do that. That's a little much. That's the warp one. Like this one here is twirl. So looks like he has a broken nose or whatever. So again, you don't want to go like crazy and do too many weird things to that. The ones that we mostly would use for plastic surgery would be the pucker tool, which makes things smaller, and the bloat tool would make them bigger. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and choose the bloat because I want to make him have kind of big, weird eyeballs. So I like to just click one time and then scoot it over and click again and scoot it over until I kind of get it the way I want. These remind me of bobbleheads, by the way, for some reason. Now again, you don't want to like just hold down and click forever because it just gets a little weird. Now I know Avatar doesn't really have like huge eyeballs. They have more cat eyes, so you probably would want to make that adjustment a little bit, but this works for me, I think. You can come from the top a little bit if you want to make them not be so tall, and then kind of do that. And then we want to take the middle part, brush it down a little bit, and we want to give it a little bit more space between the eyes. So I'm clicking and dragging a little bit to the, and you can move the nose out a little bit as well. So just be careful and make these changes very gently so they're not real, ugly and they don't mess your pixels up and look like you painted it too much. Okay. All right, so we've done the bloat tool. And again, you decide exactly how it needs to look for you, but we want him to look a little bit weird. Okay, so once you have it and you're happy with it, you just press OK. And it applies it. Now this is going to mess up our mask a little bit. Your eyeballs might be now not having the right area in the mask, so I'm going to click back on this one. See, I've got some of it that's got blue in it now, so I'm going to have to touch that mask up just a smidge. So I'm going to take the black and paint this out, so that's not still doing that. There we go. So probably, lesson to yourself, do any changes that are destructive first before you add your masks in when you get ready to do one of these projects so you don't have that problem. You're showing a problem with the lips because we didn't do anything to the lips. So we should be good to go at this point. All right. Now I'm going to do one more thing, which is to add an overlay. And there's different ways to do these. I'm going to create a new layer and just show you some examples of some things that you can do. You can take just a plain old regular paintbrush and a color of your choice. I'm just going to pick, I don't know, this. And you could paint on here, like if you were going to do, like he's got like Indian looking artwork kind of going on their head. And I'm just going to cheat and do like really boring artwork that doesn't match. But you could draw something on there. You could zoom up and do it a lot nicer. Oh, wait, by the way, I'm on the wrong mode. Ugh, normal. Always check that if your brush is acting strange. All right, I'll do this again. All right, so I've got that on there. It looks like not real at all. But what you can do is mess with the opacity so that things get a little more see-through. Like if you had something up there on your forehead, you can mess with the opacity. Or you can mess with the blending mode. And there's different ones that do different things. So you can notice they make them look a little bit different. Like I can see sort of through to the skin with that one. The lighten one, for instance. Or soft light makes it much less, vivid and just kind of blends it in there. So you could do different things there. Again, I would probably zoom up and do that much nicer than I did there. But random V. Okay, and we'll pull the opacity back just a little. So any of that type of thing you can do there. We're going to do one more thing. I'm going to call it cracks. And we haven't done anything with special brushes yet, so this is kind of a special treat. On your brush tool, if you click the drop down, so far we've only dealt pretty much with round brushes, but if you click this little play button and you go to load brushes, on our drive, on the Z drive, in my folder and in the Photoshop folder is a brushes folder. I just totally clicked on the wrong thing. And in that Photoshop brushes folder will be all these brushes. And I have brushes in there called Crack 1 Brushes by Hawksmont, and that's the one that we're going to play around with. So when you hit load, it adds it to this list. You don't see it right away, you got to scroll down. But see down here, here's a bunch of cracks. So like I can click on one of these and see how I can put cracks on there. It's a really big brush, so I'd have to size it down some. But these are cracks, crack brushes. Alright, so we'll say that one's good. I'm going to click over here to get that close. So I'm going to size this down. Okay. Now, it's probably not a good idea to use black or white for this, so I would probably use some other color that's a little off, because if you are going to change the blending mode, blacks and whites don't really work very well with the blending mode. But let's just see what happens. I'm going to grab a dark bluish color, and then you're just going to click it one time to stamp it on there. So I'm going to make it just about the size of his face and click one time. There. So now he's got some cracks on there. And I could do it again, like I could make a smaller one and throw a crack here if I wanted to or whatever. But you can do that. Now if for some reason you had like a crack that went across, say, his eyeball, then you just want to come to your cracks layer and add a mask and then paint out in black to get rid of that. And you'll have to switch back to a normal brush to do so. But then I can just paint that out so it's not going to be on the eyeball part, you know, there. So you don't want cracks to go over like the lips and the eyes, because that doesn't look right. Okay, and then if you don't like the way these cracks initially look, try playing with the blending mode. Overlay is often a good one that makes them fade out. The darken one will be multiply, which gives you a darker look. So you can see they're in categories. There's a darkening, a lightening, and then this kind of a blending, and the overlay is considered that. I could hard light it, which gives me a harder blue light. Now, the real Avatar people don't have cracks on their faces, so this is just our take on that. They have like little sparkles and stuff. So feel free to look for other brushes in that folder to give you some of those sparkly looks, or some of the lines or something of that nature. Once you put those on there, you can always click back on the initial layer, not the mask, but on the initial layer, and press Ctrl-T, and then you can move this around. So if you wanted to warp it so that like around the cheeks it got, you know, like smaller, or you know, it wrapped around better, you know, kind of came up taller and touched the edge there, then you can do that with your warp tool and fix it up. So there you go. The last thing would be maybe to add some color to the eyeballs. So I'm going to call it eyes. Eyes are a little harder to do, especially his, because he has black eyes. So you almost can't even see those. But we'll try that, and then we'll just see what happens. You would take a color and take your brush. The Avatar people have some sort of goldish eyes, I think, some kind of really bright gold. And then you're going to basically just take and stamp it on there, which is going to look really stupid in the beginning. But then you can play with these blending modes and see if you can get one that looks better. It's kind of hard to see these, but it is actually, there's a gold tinge in there. You go to multiply, you can't really see it at all. Soft light, yeah, because he's got such dark ones, it's really hard. This one might be one that you're better served to play around with these and just see what comes up. You can hit your mouse and scroll through these like so, and maybe find better options. See, that looks good, but it's red. So, but that's basically what you would do. Or of course you could take and just pull your opacity back and kind of give you that look. That's kind of some freaky eyes. So there you go. There's Michael Jackson. So have fun with that.